What if a movie could change the way you see the world? Forever. Some films don't just entertain. They disturb, enlighten, or whisper truths we weren't ready to hear. These are the movies that twist reality, bend philosophy, and shatter comfort zones. From surreal experiments to forbidden parables, each one leaves you different from who you were before watching. Let's count down the 15 weirdest movies that will change your perspective about life. Number 15. The Holy Mountain, 1973. When Alejandro Jodorowsky released The Holy Mountain, even the studio didn't know what to do with it. It wasn't just a film, it was an experience bordering on a spiritual ceremony. A surrealist masterpiece drenched in symbolism, it told the story of a thief who ascends a mountain seeking enlightenment alongside 7 corrupt figures representing modern greed. But here's the twist. Jodorowsky filled the movie with real rituals, not staged performances. Cast members underwent spiritual training led by the filmmaker himself, including yoga, tarot, and meditation. Scenes featured live animals, bizarre imagery, and biblical undertones that made some viewers nauseous. Critics called it a cinematic hallucination. Others branded it blasphemy. After its premiere, The Holy Mountain was banned in several countries for religious desecration. Even its American distributor refused wide release after a fallout with Alan Klein, the Beatles' former manager. For decades, the film existed only in bootleg copies, whispered about by film students and cult devotees. Today, it's celebrated as one of the boldest artistic visions ever captured on film, a journey not to understand, but to feel. Watching it isn't passive, it's transformational. You don't leave it entertained, you leave it altered. Number 14. Stalker, 1979. When Soviet director Andrei Tarkovsky made Stalker, he wasn't trying to tell a science fiction story. He was building a mirror for the human soul. Set in a desolate radioactive zone where reality bends and desires come true, the film follows 3 men, a writer, a scientist, and a mysterious guide called the Stalker, on a pilgrimage to the room where wishes are granted. But production itself felt cursed. The film was shot in polluted industrial zones. Several crew members, including Tarkovsky himself, later died from illnesses linked to the locations. Soviet authorities demanded edits, worried its cryptic message mocked bureaucracy and faith. Tarkovsky refused to compromise. "It's not about science," he said. "It's about faith in what cannot be seen." Upon release, audiences were baffled. Some walked out, calling it slow or incomprehensible, but over time, Stalker became a spiritual text disguised as cinema. Its pacing hypnotic, its silence deafening. Critics now call it one of the greatest philosophical films ever made. Decades later, its eerie atmosphere feels prophetic, an allegory for mankind's endless search for meaning in the ruins we create. To watch Stalker is to step into your own subconscious and confront what you truly desire and fear. Number 13. Synecdoche, New York, 2008. When Charlie Kaufman wrote and directed Synecdoche, New York, he wasn't making a movie about art, he was making art about existence itself. Philip Seymour Hoffman plays a theater director who builds a life-sized replica of New York inside a warehouse, trying to recreate every detail of his own life for an impossible play. But soon the replica grows larger than reality, and the lines between actor and person, truth and illusion collapse. Audiences were divided. Many left theaters confused or emotionally drained. Some critics hailed it as genius. Others dismissed it as pretentious madness. Kaufman himself admitted he wanted viewers to feel lost, just as we do in life. Behind the scenes, the film struggled financially and commercially. It flopped at the box office, but those who connected with it called it life-changing. It questioned memory, identity, time, and mortality, not through answers but through overwhelming complexity. In hindsight, Synecdoche, New York feels like a warning about obsession and a meditation on the futility of control. Its final line, "There's no large life. It's the same life," still haunts anyone who's ever questioned their purpose. It doesn't just ask you to think, it dares you to confront your reflection. Number 12. Eraserhead, 1977. David Lynch's Eraserhead wasn't meant for mainstream audiences. It was an artistic fever dream that crawled out of the subconscious. Shot over 5 years on a microscopic budget, it told the bizarre story of Henry Spencer, a man trapped in a decaying industrial wasteland caring for his deformed, otherworldly child. There's no clear plot, no tidy meaning, just dread, loneliness, and surreal beauty. When it premiered, most viewers didn't know what to make of it. Some laughed nervously, others ran out. Lynch refused to explain a single frame. "It's a dream of dark and troubling things," he said, and that was all he'd give. The film was banned from several mainstream theaters for being too disturbing, while critics called it grotesque, shocking, and revolutionary. Behind the scenes, Eraserhead nearly destroyed Lynch financially. He lived inside the abandoned sets during filming, sometimes shooting for only an hour a week. Every sound, hissing radiators, industrial drones, was handcrafted to create psychological discomfort. Yet what began as a midnight curiosity became a cult phenomenon. Years later, directors like Stanley Kubrick and George Lucas cited it as life-changing. Its haunting imagery, a symbol of the anxiety of existence, still resonates in modern cinema. Watching Eraserhead feels less like viewing a film and more like visiting a nightmare you somehow recognize. It's not meant to be understood, it's meant to be felt. Number 11. The Man Who Fell to Earth, 1976. At the height of his fame, David Bowie wasn't just a musician, he was an alien among mortals. Nicholas Roeg's The Man Who Fell to Earth captured that essence perfectly. Bowie played Thomas Jerome Newton, a being who crash lands on Earth searching for water for his dying planet. Instead, he's seduced and destroyed by human greed. The film was visually stunning, non-linear, and deeply unsettling. Audiences expecting sci-fi spectacle got philosophical despair instead. Its fragmented editing mirrored the alien's disintegration, leaving many confused. Critics were divided. Some saw genius, others chaos. Behind the scenes, Bowie was reportedly in a fragile mental state, struggling to separate himself from the role. "I was out of my gourd most of the time," he later confessed. The line between performance and breakdown blurred so much that crew members worried he'd actually lost touch with reality. Censors trimmed parts deemed too strange or indecent, muting Roeg's surreal vision. But the damage was done. The movie flopped in America. Yet, decades later, it was rediscovered as a haunting portrait of alienation in a capitalist world. It wasn't about space at all. It was about loneliness, fame, and the human inability to save what matters. Watching it today feels eerily prophetic, as if Bowie's extraterrestrial melancholy still hovers over us, whispering, "We're all just visitors here." Number 10. Solaris, 1972. Tarkovsky appears again, this time with Solaris, his answer to Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey. Where Kubrick looked outward into space, Tarkovsky looked inward, into the human soul. The story follows psychologist Chris Kelvin, sent to a space station orbiting the mysterious planet Solaris, where the crew is haunted by physical manifestations of their repressed memories. When it premiered, Soviet authorities hated it. They called it too Western, too slow, and too spiritual. Tarkovsky refused to cut a frame. His film ran nearly 3 hours and was filled with meditative silences, long tracking shots, and painful introspection. It wasn't science fiction, it was a film about grief, memory, and guilt masquerading as space exploration. Audiences expecting cosmic spectacle found something else, an emotional abyss. The film divided critics but captivated philosophers, theologians, and artists worldwide. Its haunting music, dreamlike pacing, and poetic visuals redefined what cinema could be. Behind the scenes, Tarkovsky battled relentless censorship. Every reel had to be justified ideologically. Yet Solaris survived, becoming a quiet rebellion against conformity. Its legacy endures not for its visuals, but for its question. What if the universe doesn't give us answers, only reflections? Watching it feels like floating through your own regrets. And when the credits roll, you're not sure if you've seen a movie or glimpsed your own soul. Number 9. Waking Life, 2001. Richard Linklater's Waking Life isn't just a film, it's an existential conversation disguised as animation. Created using rotoscope technology that traced over live-action footage, it drifts through a dream world where a young man encounters philosophers, strangers, and spirits who all debate one question: what does it mean to be alive? When it premiered, audiences were stunned. The film had no conventional plot, only ideas stitched together like dream fragments. Viewers expecting coherence found chaos. Those open to wonder found enlightenment. The visual style, constantly morphing and shifting, mirrored the instability of thought itself. Linklater's film didn't ask for attention. It demanded introspection. Critics either adored it or dismissed it as pseudo-intellectual. But the real magic was behind the scenes. The entire film was animated by a group of independent artists working from their homes, each scene in a slightly different style, making the film pulse like a living organism. Linklater called it a lucid dream about lucid dreaming. In universities and philosophy courses, Waking Life became required viewing, a cinematic meditation on consciousness, free will, and the illusion of waking reality. Watching it feels like floating between sleep and clarity, unsure if you're learning or remembering. By the time it ends, you start to wonder whether you've been awake your entire life or just dreaming. Number 8. The Truman Show, 1998. Long before reality TV consumed the world, The Truman Show warned us about it. Directed by Peter Weir, this eerily prophetic film starred Jim Carrey as Truman Burbank, a man who slowly realizes his entire life is a television show broadcast to millions. His friends, wife, and town all actors. His world a studio dome. When it released, it was a hit, but not everyone laughed. Audiences left theaters uneasy, whispering, "What if this is us?" Psychologists later coined the Truman Show delusion, describing real people convinced they were living inside a constructed simulation. Behind the scenes, Carrey was transforming too. Known for broad comedy, he took a hauntingly sincere turn, channeling vulnerability and confusion. Filming was done inside a massive custom-built dome in Florida, the largest set ever created at the time. Every sunrise and sunset was artificially timed. Even the rain was controlled by computers. Some governments reportedly banned or restricted the film temporarily, fearing its message encouraged distrust in authority and media. But over time, The Truman Show became one of cinema's great philosophical parables. It predicted surveillance culture, influencer obsession, and digital voyeurism years before social media existed. When Truman finally touches the sky's painted edge and steps through the door, it's not just his escape, it's an invitation for us to wake up too. Number 7. Donnie Darko, 2001. When Donnie Darko first premiered, no one knew how to classify it. Was it science fiction, a psychological thriller, a time travel tragedy, or all three? Jake Gyllenhaal stars as Donnie, a troubled teenager haunted by visions of a demonic rabbit that tells him the world will end in 28 days. What follows is a tangled dream of destiny, parallel universes, and teenage despair. Released shortly after September 11th, the film was nearly buried. The imagery of falling engines and apocalyptic dread terrified distributors, leading to a limited release. Critics were divided, audiences confused. Yet something about its haunting tone and cryptic storytelling caught fire on DVD. Fans began dissecting every frame, building entire online cults around its meaning. Behind the scenes, the film was nearly canceled multiple times. Writer-director Richard Kelly fought constant studio interference and budget constraints. The production team had to shoot guerrilla style in suburban California, with Gyllenhaal's eerie performance anchoring the madness. Patrick Swayze's darkly ironic role as a motivational speaker shocked fans used to his romantic image. Over the years, Donnie Darko became a cult religion of its own, a study in fate, mental health, and the chaos of adolescence. It doesn't give answers, it gives questions. Watching it is like staring into a time loop of your own fears and wondering if you could see your future, would you dare to change it? Number 6. The Fountain, 2006. Darren Aronofsky's. The Fountain is one of those rare films that split audiences right down the middle. Some called it pretentious, others called it transcendent. But everyone agreed it was unlike anything they'd seen before. Starring Hugh Jackman and Rachel Weisz, it told 3 parallel stories across 1,000 years about a conquistador searching for immortality, a modern scientist trying to cure death, and a cosmic traveler mourning eternity. At its heart, it's about one thing: love versus time. But Aronofsky didn't want to make it easy. The film's imagery, nebulae, golden trees, floating orbs, wasn't CGI but practical effects created using microscopic photography of chemical reactions. Every frame pulsed like living art. Behind the scenes, the movie almost didn't happen. Originally, it was a massive $70 million production starring Brad Pitt and Cate Blanchett, but the project collapsed just weeks before filming. Aronofsky reassembled it with a smaller budget and twice the passion. When it finally premiered, critics were polarized. Some booed at Venice. Others wept. Over the years, The Fountain found new life as a cult film for those searching for meaning beyond mortality. It asks us to confront the inevitability of death, not as an end, but as transformation. By the time the credits roll, you're left in silence, not with fear, but with a strange peace. Watching it feels like dreaming about the end of everything and realizing it's beautiful. Number 5. Enter the Void, 2009. Gaspar Noé's. Enter the Void isn't a film, it's an out-of-body experience. Shot almost entirely from a first-person perspective, it follows a young drug dealer in Tokyo whose spirit leaves his body after being killed in a raid. From that moment, we drift with him through neon-lit streets, memories, and reincarnations. Time, space, and death melt into one continuous trip. Audiences at Cannes were divided between awe and nausea. Some walked out, others called it genius. Noé designed the film to simulate a psychedelic near-death experience using flashing strobe lights, ultraviolet colors, and camera angles that felt impossible. Even the opening credits were a sensory overload, an assault of typography and music that felt like falling into infinity. Behind the camera, the production was chaos. Noé demanded complex single-take shots using robotic cranes that mimicked the motion of a floating spirit. Critics accused him of style over substance, but years later the movie became a staple in film schools, praised for redefining cinematic perspective. It wasn't just about death. It was about perception. The legacy of Enter the Void lies in its ability to erase the line between viewer and participant. When it ends, you feel like you've died, been reborn, and questioned every rule of existence in between. It's terrifying, enlightening, and utterly unforgettable, an experience that proves film can reach beyond the body. Number 4. The Seventh Seal, 1957. Few films have captured the human struggle with faith and death as powerfully as Ingmar Bergman's The Seventh Seal. In plague-ridden medieval Europe, a weary knight returns from the Crusades only to find his homeland decimated by death and despair. When death himself appears, hooded, pale, and calm, the knight challenges him to a game of chess, hoping to delay his inevitable end. The film was controversial from the start. Religious groups accused Bergman of blasphemy for portraying God as silent amid suffering. But audiences couldn't look away. Its imagery, the chessboard on the beach, the dance of death on the hilltop, became symbols of existential cinema. Behind the scenes, Bergman was wrestling with his own crisis of belief. "I film my fears," he once said. The Seventh Seal became his confession, an artist's desperate search for meaning in a world that offers none. Despite early censorship attempts, it broke through Europe's post-war despair, redefining what film could say about philosophy and mortality. Its influence is eternal. From The Exorcist to The Tree of Life, echoes of Bergman's black and white world linger. Watching it today feels like staring into eternity itself. We see our reflection in that night, daring to play one last move against the inevitable, knowing we'll lose, but fighting anyway, because that's what being human really means. Number 3. The Tree of Life. 2011 Terrence Malick's The Tree of Life isn't a movie, it's a prayer written in images. When it premiered, audiences were split. Some called it transcendent, others left theaters bewildered. There's no clear narrative, just fragments of childhood memories, whispered prayers, and visions of creation and destruction spanning from prehistoric Earth to modern Texas. It's less about plot and more about being. Brad Pitt and Jessica Chastain play parents raising 3 boys in the 1950s, but the film expands beyond their lives to depict the birth of stars, the evolution of life, and the aching silence of loss. Malick used natural light, cosmic imagery, and whispered narration to create what he called the feeling of remembering something sacred. Behind the scenes, the film took nearly 4 decades to realize. Malick rewrote the script for years, shot hundreds of hours of footage, and edited obsessively. At Cannes, it received both boos and a standing ovation, a fitting response for a work that divides and unites in equal measure. Its legacy? The Tree of Life redefined what cinema could be, philosophy made visible. It asks, what is grace, what is love, and what do we leave behind? For those patient enough to surrender, it changes not just how you see movies, but how you see existence itself. Number 2. Mulholland Drive, 2001. When David Lynch returned with Mulholland Drive, no one expected a puzzle box this deep. Originally conceived as a TV pilot, it morphed into one of the most haunting films of the century. On the surface, it's about an aspiring actress, Naomi Watts, who befriends an amnesiac woman after a car crash. But as the story unfolds, identities fracture, dreams bleed into reality, and nothing is what it seems. Audiences tried to decode it for years. Who's real? Who's dreaming? Even Lynch refused to clarify, saying only, "It's all there, if you're looking the right way." Some saw it as a story about lost love and identity, others a commentary on Hollywood's illusions. Behind the scenes, the movie nearly died in production. When the TV network rejected the pilot as too strange, Lynch salvaged it with French funding, turning it into a full-length feature. The result was a masterpiece born from chaos. Critics hailed it as hypnotic, erotic, terrifying, and heartbreaking, all at once. Mulholland Drive became the ultimate cinematic dream, intoxicating, terrifying, and endlessly rewatchable. It exposes the dark underbelly of ambition, the lies we tell to protect ourselves from truth. Watching it feels like falling asleep inside someone else's nightmare and waking up unsure whose memories are your own. Number 1. 2001. A Space Odyssey, 1968. When Stanley Kubrick unleashed 2001, A Space Odyssey, audiences had never seen anything like it. Some walked out, others claimed it changed their lives. With minimal dialogue and overwhelming visuals, it told the story of humanity's evolution. From apes discovering tools to astronauts confronting a godlike artificial intelligence and finally a mysterious leap into cosmic rebirth. The film was called confusing, pretentious, and even insane upon release. But in time, it became one of the most profound meditations on existence ever filmed. Kubrick's obsession with perfection bordered on madness. He built real rotating spacecraft interiors, consulted NASA engineers, and invented camera techniques that revolutionized science fiction forever. Behind the scenes, Kubrick and co-writer Arthur C. Clarke kept the meaning deliberately obscure. "If you understand 2001 completely," Kubrick said, "we failed." He wanted it to be experienced, not explained. The film's haunting AI villain, HAL 9000, and its final sequence, The Star Child, sparked endless debate about consciousness, evolution, and destiny. Its influence spans generations. From Spielberg to Nolan, every visionary filmmaker borrows from its audacity. Watching 2001 isn't about understanding, it's about surrendering. The moment that black monolith appears, you realize cinema itself has evolved. And so maybe have we. Some films don't just tell stories, they rewire how we see reality. They remind us that life isn't simple, truth isn't fixed, and perception is everything. Which of these mind-bending films changed your outlook the most? Tell us in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and step further down the rabbit hole of cinema's strangest masterpieces.